was supposed to be a joke. They called her name not out of admiration, but mockery. The auditorium lights were hot, the crowd restless. But one corner, in particular, buzzed with whispers and snickers. That's where the popular kid sat, smirking, waiting for the show to begin. Her name? Amara Jones, 14 years old. Quiet. Dressed in a hand-me-down floral dress and worn-out sneakers. Not because she lacked style, but because style wasn't made for girls like her, not in a school like theirs. Not in a town where being different meant being a target. She walked slowly, clutching the microphone like a lifeline. Not because she was scared of singing, but because she knew she wasn't wanted up there. Not really. The school's annual talent showcase was meant to uplift voices. But that day, it was used to break one, or so they thought. Welcome to Black Untold Stories, where we shine light on the stories they tried to erase. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time, because this story will stay with you. Amara didn't audition. Her name appeared on the list suddenly, as a last-minute act. Students chuckled when they saw it. One even asked, "Is she really gonna sing? What's she gonna do, hum gospel?" She had always been invisible. The girl who sat in the back. Who read during lunch. Who teachers praised but classmates ignored. Except this time, they noticed her, and it wasn't kindness. Her mom, a single mother working double shifts, had told her that morning, "You don't let the world tell you who you are, baby. You show them." And now, here she was, on a stage she never asked for, in front of a crowd that didn't believe in her. The MC, a senior boy who thought himself funny, introduced her with a smirk. "Up next, we've got Amara." "Yeah, you heard that right. Amara's gonna sing us a little something. Let's give it up." The claps were sparse. Mostly sarcastic. She adjusted the mic, took a breath. Before we continue, if you are enjoying this story, let us know where you are listening from and the time. Let's know how far our story travels. Amara had been called Oreo more times than she could count, black on the outside, white on the inside. They thought it was a joke. A compliment even, but to a 14-year-old girl still trying to love herself, it felt like poison in pretty packaging. Even her teachers weren't always allies. One math teacher constantly mispronounced her name, even after she corrected him every week. Another once asked her during a lesson on Africa, "Maybe you can tell the class more about what it's like over there." Over there, she lived right here. In the same town. On the same streets. Paying the same taxes through her mother's triple shifts, but still. She kept quiet, her escape. Music. Late at night, when the world was too heavy, she'd put in her headphones and disappear into melodies that understood her. Gospel. Soul. Old school R&B. And when no one was watching, she'd sing. Her mother used to say her voice came from her grandmother, a woman who sang through the civil rights movement, who led church choirs and protest songs when marching was too dangerous. Amara never met her, but sometimes when she sang, it felt like someone else was singing through her. Like her voice didn't just belong to her, but to every black girl who had ever been made to feel less. So when her name showed up on the performance list, likely added by a group of boys looking for a laugh, she didn't tell anyone, not her mom, not her teachers, not even herself. Really, she planned to skip the show altogether. Walk out and pretend she never saw it. But the night before the event, something shifted. She found an old recording her mother had saved, her grandmother singing "A Change Is Gonna Come" in a church basement. The voice was shaky, recorded through a cassette player, but it carried something timeless. Power. Grief. Hope. And it moved Amara in a way she couldn't explain. She stayed up all night learning it. Not just the words, but the weight of them. That morning, as she stood by the stage curtain waiting for her name to be called, she heard laughter. She knew it was about her. But this time, she didn't flinch. She stepped onto the stage anyway, not to entertain them, not to prove anything, but to release something, because sometimes, a voice is the only weapon the unheard have, and when hers rang out, it wasn't just Amara they were hearing, it was a legacy, it was pain, it was survival, it was love. The first note was soft, so soft it was almost a whisper, but it cut through the room like thunder. Amara sang the opening line of A Change Is Gonna Come. With trembling resolve, her voice wrapped in years of silence and shame. It wasn't loud. It wasn't flashy. But it was real, and in a world full of noise, truth is the loudest sound of all. The crowd, which moments earlier buzzed with snickers and smug smiles, fell still. The MC, who had introduced her with a mocking grin, froze, his fake confidence melting into disbelief. One teacher leaned forward, as if trying to make sure the voice he was hearing was truly coming from the girl he had barely noticed all year. The principal, half distracted in the back row, put down his clipboard and looked up. Amara's voice rose slowly with the next line, stronger now. Clearer. You could feel her shaking at first, but then something happened. It was like her spirit took over. Like all the nights spent humming in her room, all the tears soaked into her pillow, all the words she wanted to say but never could, they all poured into that moment. Each lyric became a declaration, each breath, a defiance, each note, a release. In the third row, a boy who used to tease her about her hair suddenly stopped chewing his gum. His eyes didn't move. His smirk had vanished. In the front row, a girl who once called her ghetto now looked ashamed. Even the janitor paused at the door, mop in hand, and stared in disbelief. Amara didn't see them. She didn't need to, because her eyes were closed. Not in fear, but in freedom. She had nothing left to prove, and everything to feel. The music didn't need backup vocals or flashing lights. Her voice held its own weight. It echoed through the auditorium like it had been waiting to be heard, not just by them, but by her. Somewhere in the middle of the second verse, you could hear it, sniffling, first from the back, then from the side. By the final chorus, tears were silently falling across the room. Not from pity, but from the shame of having underestimated her. She sang the final line like it was a prayer. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gone come. And then, silence, no applause, not yet, just stunned stillness. Then, like a wave crashing after the tide, clapping, but not the sarcastic kind from before. This time, it was different. Real. Risen from the gut, some students stood up, some covered their mouths. The MC. He dropped his mic literally. No jokes. No smirks. Amara opened her eyes and looked out at the sea of stunned faces. She didn't smile. She didn't bow, she just stepped back. Calm. Whole, because she hadn't come to perform, she came to be heard, and for the first time in a long time. She was. The applause eventually faded, but the echoes lingered. That night, Amara walked home the same way she had every day. No parade. No camera crew. Just her backpack and the cold wind brushing past. But something felt different. For the first time, she didn't lower her eyes when someone passed her on the sidewalk. For the first time, her reflection in store windows didn't look like a shadow. It looked like Amara, the girl who sang. The girl they couldn't ignore. By morning, the entire school was talking. Some students replayed the video over and over, someone had recorded it and uploaded it to TikTok with the caption, "When the girl they joked about leaves the whole room speechless." It had over 200,000 views by lunchtime, but not all the talk was praise. A few students, especially the ones who laughed the loudest, tried to act like it was their idea all along. "See? We just gave her the spotlight," one of them claimed, but everyone knew the truth. And this time, the lie didn't stick. Some teachers reached out to her. "Amara, I had no idea you had that talent. You were amazing up there." But their words felt too easy. Too late. Like patching a crack in a wall that had already crumbled, her principal called her into the office. Not to scold, but to praise. "You reminded us what this school is supposed to stand for," he said, eyes watery. She thanked him quietly. He offered her a chance to lead the school's choir for Black History Month. She didn't say yes right away. She wanted to think about it. Not because she wasn't honored, but because she was still learning how to accept the light. After living in so much shade, outside, students who once brushed past her now looked at her with curious eyes. Some were respectful, some were awkward, a few even apologized, like Sarah. Sarah had once pulled Amara's hair in 6th grade and called it bushy. Now she stood in front of her locker, wringing her hands. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. For everything. You didn't deserve that." Amara looked at her. Really looked, not with bitterness, but with the power of someone who no longer needed her approval. "I know," she replied. Then walked past her, head high, because this story was no longer about the people who hurt her, it was about the girl who sang anyway. And while everyone was busy reacting to the performance, no one realized what the real change was. Amara didn't just win respect. She reclaimed her voice. That voice, so often ignored, mocked, reduced, had become the loudest sound in the room, and once a voice like that is heard, it cannot be unheard. In the days that followed, Amara's name was no longer said with pity, but with respect. But she didn't care for the fame. She wasn't chasing likes. She didn't want a spotlight. She only wanted something most people take for granted: to be seen, to be heard, to be enough. What happened on that stage wasn't a performance, it was a release, a breaking of chains no one else could see. And that's the truth about racism: it often doesn't come with slurs or violence. Sometimes, it shows up as invisibility. As the absence of kindness, as the assumption that because you're black, you couldn't possibly be brilliant. But Amara proved something powerful: you don't need to scream to be heard, you don't need revenge to make an impact. Sometimes, just being excellent in the face of hatred is the loudest rebellion of all. The talent show ended. The school year moved on. The applause faded from hallways, but Amara kept singing. Not to prove them wrong anymore, but to remind herself she was always right. She joined the Black History Month choir. Not because she needed a stage, but because she wanted to build one for others. She started helping younger girls find their voices. Girls who, like her, had learned to shrink so they could fit into spaces that were never made for them. And maybe that's what this was all about from the beginning: not revenge, not recognition, but reclamation, taking back what the world tried to convince her she didn't have: worth. If you've ever felt like Amara, like your skin made you a target, like your voice wasn't enough, like your existence was too bold for quiet rooms, then let this story stay with you, because Amara is more than one girl on a stage. She is every black child who turned pain into purpose. She is every voice that refused to stay silent. She is every note that shook the walls of racism and said, "I'm still here." This is Black Untold Stories, and we're not just telling stories, we're restoring dignity, we're amplifying truth, we're making sure the world never forgets who we are. So if this moved you, subscribe, If you know someone who needs to hear this, share it, and if you believe that every voice matters, stay with us, because this was just one story, and we've got thousands more. We are black. We are bold. And we are never going silent again.